reading an article here, basically about why Christians are losing this generation. Why Christians are losing this generation. Why they're leaving in droves and not coming back. You see, the moral majority, when that term was coined, basically fundraising started seriously from then, working on fear. That it was Democrats were evil, child-killing, Satanist, and to this day, that is what the Trumpies believe. They've lost their way. They've never matured in their religious belief about God and what the message of Jesus Christ was. The people who created these saviors for us understood the most base human nature. They've become, the way they raise money is through fear. One fairly well-known Christian writer, whose article I'm currently reading, talked about how he asked Falwell about, why don't you have a positive message instead of sending out these letters telling people when you're fundraising about the terrible, horrible Democrat Satanists? Why don't you send out a positive message, one that Jesus Christ would approve of? And he said, you can't raise money with a positive message. You have to scare them. And that started a ball rolling downhill that the church has been unable to stop. I am honest when I tell people, look, I went in and out of the anus of religion. I saw, it didn't take me long, because I'm an intelligent fellow, it didn't take me long to see how they operated, that they were the most hypocritical group I had ever experienced in my life. The things they did were the most unchristian things that I had ever seen in my life. The way they tried to bring people to their donation basket were the most unchristian things I had ever seen in my life. The way they talked about someone because they were a Democrat, that they were an evil Satanist, and that Jesus was a Republican. And, the people who helped create this country, even though it was created by stealing it from people who already lived here, they understood why there needed to be a separation between church and state, because they had already been exposed to what that caused. But slowly but surely, the moral majority rolled right into the fear tactic, that pointing the finger at that person and saying, that person is after you. That person is a Satanist and they want to ruin your life. They want to take your freedom. They want to take your guns. They want to take your kids. And if you go to a major mega church, what you hear is that exact same rhetoric. It's not a positive message about God. It's a negative message about people who would oppose Republicans. This is why the church is losing, because everyone has one of these devices now. People are no longer unable to find information. And as you grow and mature into an adult, you start to see the manipulation of these people who are simple-minded. Not bad people, just simple-minded. And that they were easy to scare. Okay? Jim Johnson talked about, oh, the horrible Satanists that hate us flyover people. He called us the flyover people. It's a terrible misuse of God. And I see the far right Christians as no different than ISIS or Hezbollah. That's truly what I believe. And that when we lock Donald Trump up finally, who is probably the most evil man that has ever been in politics in the United States, which is saying something, okay? That we're going to see our own Hezbollah. We're going to see our own ISIS movement. When you have these fucking guys walking around playing army man in camo with their M16s slung over their shoulder, or their AR-15s, excuse me, slung over their shoulders, wearing American flag designed pants, hats, watches, wallets, socks, tennis shoes, talking about how much they hate Democratic political voters. These are your fellow Americans. These aren't Satanists or pedophiles. They simply believe something different than you. But like most religions, okay, there's no tolerance for that. There is no tolerance in the religious right. No tolerance, no understanding, no compromise. And you cannot change these people's minds because they have been brainwashed since they could walk. Just the same way Palestinian children are brainwashed into hating Israelis, and Israeli children are brainwashed into hating Palestinians. It's intergenerational. And when you have all these people in the Oval Office laying hands on the president like there's some magic fucking tribunal in front of God happening, that they're blessing this man who's sent from heaven, and there could be no more or less Christian of a man when it comes to morals than Donald J. Trump. His wife's having a baby and he's banging some fucking hooker. A thief. A thief. A man who doesn't pay his bills. A man who's bankrupted 6 times. He's bankrupted himself and then wormed his way out with his speech. The great liar. And these are who evangelicals choose to follow because they think they're going to get more power. They're going to harm those Satanist Democrats. You know, you look back at who wins the popular vote in the last 5 elections is not Republicans. Are you telling me that all those people aren't Christians or can't have any love for God? You see, they don't have to believe the way you believe. I died. I was shown God, and I was basically told that man's religion is the bane of mankind, that so many evils of this world stem from the zealots. Do you read the fucking Bible? Do you right-wing goddamn Christians even read the fucking Bible? When you're warned about the zealots, when you're warned about the great liar, the Christians who will fall down on their knees and worship the great liar, because he will say exactly what you want to hear, that you're the one that's right. They're coming to get you. The Satanists are going to take over the world. That's how the Bible tells you Satan is going to conquer you, the right-wing Christian. through lies and deception. Do you not read the book? You see, because the people who wrote those books, they understand human nature. What I understand as a person who has seen God and basically came back to this hell so that I could be with God. I came back to serve God in a capacity I never thought I would be doing, which is this video, just right now, on this bridge right here that I have to reach you. And not many people are going to watch this video because I'm going to offend everybody with it. But that's the point. You see, I don't need faith. I saw God. I know what happens when you die because I died. And the religion that man created is to manipulate man. And it's happening right now in our country to a degree that scares the hell out of me. It's a joke. When Klepper goes out and interviews Trumpies, I'm embarrassed for their ignorance and stupidity and their lack of even self-awareness of what's coming out of their mouth, okay, is a joke. And they don't get it. They don't understand the self-immolation that they're doing. They don't understand they're burning themselves to the ground right in front of people like me who aren't captive to the religious right. Their bullshit about hate and hate others, fear others. Others are coming to get you. The Satanists are coming to get you. It makes it sound like your God is pretty weak, that your God has no power here, that Jesus didn't forgive. He didn't turn the other cheek. He voted Republican, by golly, to get rid of those Satanists. Some of the most immoral people are in the far right religious. How many, do you hear about Democrats being hauled in front of the Pope for raping children? No, thousands of Catholic priests. How many of the moral majority have had to sit up on stage crying, "Oh, I'm so sorry that I fucked that whore because I'm just a man and I'm weak and that's why I need Jesus"? The criminality, okay, the fundraising especially. The fundraising on those people who they would have fear their fellow Americans because they don't believe the same thing that they believe. And so they scare them, and that's how they get their money. Money these people really probably can't afford. Why? Power. Power. Way worse than the love of money, okay, is the need for power. I think we'll know who we're talking about here. Little by little, Thomas told me the limits were pushed. The successes of the moral majority became self-justifying. The money raised by dubious methods was evidence of God's blessings on the project, thereby sanctioning ever more dubious methods to raise ever more money. God needs money. He's all powerful, but God needs money. He needs power. He needs you to be a Republican because God is weak. You see, that's the real message they're telling you. They just don't hear it. The worst one I ever saw was Jerry Falwell compared himself to Jesus. It actually said, "Now I know what it was like for Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane," Thomas said. And I told him, "Jerry, you can't say that." And he said, "Huh? It must have gone out without my approval." But the guy says nothing went out without his approval. That's just how radical we had become, talking about the moral majority. We had no problem saying that Jesus would have been a Republican, even though his kingdom, not of this world. How do you get around that? Actually, getting around that is simple. American evangelicals have a talent for what some theologians call baptizing the past. That means propagating the tale of George Washington asking a chaplain to dunk him in the icy waters at Valley Forge when there's absolutely zero evidence that that ever happened. Insisting that Jefferson Thomas was a God-fearing humanitarian when he was in fact a slave-holding Epicurean deist, seizing upon Abraham Lincoln's appropriation of Scripture to paint him as an evangelical when he was known to mock revivalists, rarely attend church, and one day, no doubt, citing photos of Trump in an Oval Office prayer circle to argue that the 45th president was himself an earnest follower of Christ. I can tell you, being over 70 and knowing Donald Trump since he was 19 years old, starting out, he's about as far from a Christian as a Christian can get. The man has lied, cheated, and stolen his way. He stole from a fucking cancer charity, for Christ's sakes. He stole from a charity. He was found guilty and paid a fine, and that was it. Have you ever heard Christians talk about that? Stealing from children, stealing from sick people. What would Jesus say about that? Blessed are the children. What would Jesus say about that? Gambling casinos. Huh? Hanging out with hookers. Extramarital affairs up the yin-yang. You know, I think one day when Donald Trump is in jail and he's no longer of any use to Vladimir Putin, that we're going to see that pee-pee tape just so Vladimir Putin can embarrass the United States that, look, this is what one of their presidents did. We'll see. You see, the reason there needs to be a separation between church and state is because those who would control men, in other words, religion, okay? How do they survive? If you have a mega church, oh, well, you need a 36-bedroom home and drive a Ferrari. What would Jesus say about that? Instead of spending that money to feed starving children, what would Jesus think about some big mouth fucking megachurch guy owning a gigantic fucking home that would fill hundreds of people's needs and then driving a Ferrari and having millions, tens of millions of dollars in his checking account? What would Jesus think about that? Do right-wing Christians ever question anything? Or do they blindly just follow what is said by that man on the stage? Because that's what they've been taught to do. Okay? That this is how you worship God. Well, I can tell you that no one escapes true justice. No one escapes God's love. On your last day, when you breathe your last breath, you will understand the devastating, horrifying ugliness of human religion. How many tens of millions of people have been murdered in the name of God? Every single action you have taken that have harmed others, even through your ignorance, you will relive in exquisite detail. In order to be cleaned, to go to God, you have to relive your life. And I don't mean like a movie. I mean like every sentient, conscious, spiritual being that ever existed will watch your life unfold before them. The lies that you told, the people you helped also. It's not all negative, okay? But your life is exposed and you are exposed completely. There will be no hiding. There will be no lying. There will be no deceptiveness. It is a place of God. The hypocrite will be exposed. I myself, I understand because I was shown my life when I died. From when I went back until there was a why in my life. My whole life I've had what I called super events of deja vu. They didn't last for seconds. They lasted for hours or a day. And I would walk around all day long terrified because I knew what was going to happen second to second. And then my deal, the deal that I said I would come back and do, I guess, somehow was signed, sealed, and delivered. And I always think that that had something to do with someone else in my life, my wife, Katie. That it took that was the switch. And the last vision I had of my death that they showed me, of my life that they showed me, not my death, but my life that they showed me, was on a road, on a bridge, in a very special car that had a very special color. And I found myself on that bridge, in that car. And that car was the only car in the world that was that color. It was that special. And at that moment, I thought I was going to die. I truly thought I was going to die. I thought I was going to have a heart attack. It was so overwhelming that I had never, ever felt that much fear in my life. And I have done things in my life like fly upside down underneath of the Berryessa Bridge with only 6 feet of clearance above, below, and on each wing. I've done things that no person should have survived. And that moment when I realized this was it, I pulled over, I smoked about 5 cigarettes. I didn't even visit my friends that I went to visit. I went straight home. And for some reason, I decided, okay, well, this YouTube thing, I think I'm going to experiment with that because I was a gamer and I saw what was happening to gaming. It wasn't about that. That was just my access point. You see, that was the bridge I was shown where I was supposed to talk to a few people and tell them, yes, I understand. You went to church and you saw the hypocrisy. You read the Bible and you saw the inconsistencies and the death and the destruction and the murder, the outright murder of innocent people in the name of God. You saw how that book was a lie assembled by men of power to control men so they could keep their power. That's what you saw. That's what you learned in your life, was that religion was a lie, not God. God is the only real thing in this universe. The religion of man, you found out, you learned, you matured. In your love of God, you matured through religion. The trouble is that left you with a hole. But what about God? I know this is a lie because I see what it does to people. I see that it demonizes people. I see that these people raise money by scaring the holy shit out of people who fear God. At the same time, I watched people cut people's heads off on a beach because they didn't believe in God the way they believed in God. My deal is to tell you that, yes, every sentient being that ever existed in this universe is with God when they die. It's not black or blankness, because there is a lot of evildoers in this world that are actually praying that the day they die, there's nothingness, that they will escape. They will escape the evil they've done in this world, or the evil they're doing right now, because there's no price to pay. Well, I'm here to tell you there is a God. It has to do with quantum mechanics. I've done many videos about it. Okay, this is why I tell people to read about microtubules and Hammeroff and Penrose, that there is a quantum being here, okay, that exists after this body dies. The trouble is for you murderers is that you're exposed completely there. There is no hiding anything. Everything is information. You have access to all information, and all information has access to you. But there is nothing to fear, because it's not a judgment. There is no judgment. God doesn't point a finger at you and say, I'm going to burn you in a lake of fire for all time because I love you. The information that you created while you're here in this place is preserved for a reason, like a book. Kind of like a lesson book. If any sentient being from any planet in this entire universe wants to know something, they can pull your file out and live your life from birth to death. They don't just read the book, they live your life from birth to death. There will be no hiding anything about what you've done here in this physical realm. And I can tell you right now, there are a lot of Christians who are going to be quite shocked when they find out that the God of man is not the God of the universe, that he's not a jealous child, that he doesn't burn people in lakes of fire, that all of the fear in the Bible is so that when they pass that fucking basket around, you put money in it for them. That's man. God doesn't need money. Trust me, he doesn't need money. If you've ever said, well, wait a minute, if there's life on other planets, the Bible says God sacrificed for us because he loved us so much. He sacrificed his only begotten Son so that whoever believeth in him should have everlasting life. What about those other beings living on other planets? Are they condemned to burn in God's lake of fire? Even if they're 1 billion years more advanced than us spiritually? We're like insects to them. We're animals to them. We're violent animals to them. We are the lowest of lowest beings encircling God. I'm telling you, they showed it to me. The circle of life around God. We are on the outside edge. We just barely made it. There are a few species that are more animalistic than us, but still achieve sentience and will be with God when they die. Their quantum existence will stay corporeal. Okay, they will still be that same being, that same person. Like they told me, you were Laren before, you will be Laren now, and you will be Laren after. When I read articles like this about the religious right and how they control and scare the holy fucking shit out of people to get their money, because God needs money. God's always broke. God needs money. Send us your money so we can stop the Satanists because God can't. Now, how does that sound when you put it that way? How does the truth grab you when it sounds like that? God can't stop Satan without your donation today, and we'll double your donation if you send it. God exists. I saw God. I don't need faith. I don't need religion. This is the joy that I have in me, but I pay for it every day with the pain and suffering. Since I've come back from dying, it's been a hard life. Yes, I've made my share of mistakes, but they didn't hurt pain-wise. You see, when they showed me my life, I was backing up, kicking and screaming, and changed my mind. I don't want to go back because of what they showed me, what my life was going to be like, the choices I would make, the pain I would be feeling, the truth that I would be seeing. And they said, but that's what you chose, because I chose God over. Basically, this place was full of nothing but love and understanding and acceptance, and it was nothing compared to God. Nothing. All knowledge, all love, all just understanding. There is no forgiveness there. Let me tell you that, okay? There's no reason to be forgiven there. We are doing exactly what we are supposed to be doing, but I can tell you right now, at any minute in your life, you can make a better choice or a better decision to be a better person. If you are a religious person, get out of politics. Get out of men controlling other men. Leave politics to politicians. God wants nothing to do, okay, with this moral majority saying that these people are evil. Judge not. You see, sometimes I think they do not read the book that they profess to know so well. Any rational, scientific person is going to be an atheist. And these are the people I'm supposed to talk to, not the people that already believe in God, even if it's not the way that would be true to God's self, to a God who doesn't need money, a God who doesn't need power, a God who doesn't fear Democrats. When I see people having their heads cut off on a beach because they're not Muslim, and then Muslims wonder why the Christians point their finger at them and say, Muslims, look what they're doing. They're evil. But if you understand history, you know that Christians are directly responsible for the death of at least 90 million innocent people. This is man's religion. Man's religion is evil. These people that are pushing Donald Trump to be president, it's not because he's a Christian. It's because of what they can get. And when they ask you, send money, I want you to understand that's not going to God, and it's not going to serve God. It's going to a man to serve men who crave power and money. I got up this morning, and as soon as I started reading this article, I was horrified. I was horrified because basically this is a person who is a very famous religious personality who understands quite well what has happened to religion in the United States, to Christianity in the United States, to what it's become, the way it's been perverted and used to, in a very evil way, to subvert your mind, your soul, okay, into being evil, into not caring about that person because, well, they're a democratic Christian, so they're not a real Christian. See? This is why you have people running into pizza shops with rifles looking for Christian blood-sucking pedophiles. They need to scare you. They need to make you afraid. They need to terrify you so you'll send them money because you're going to stop the evildoers. And what have they done over the last 20 years? They've chased every normal, sane, well-adjusted person away from God. My sole job here is to tell you that there is a God, that there is life after death. That's what I promised I would do, and that's what I'm doing. I can tell you that 20 years ago, my visions, my terrifying super deja vus stopped. The very instant I realized that was the last picture I saw was that car in the fast lane on a bridge that didn't exist at the time. And when I realized I was on that bridge that didn't exist, that I was in that car that didn't exist, that was a very special color that only existed on one car in the entire world. When I realized that moment was happening, I almost had a heart attack. I was so afraid this was the end of the world. I was so shook up, I barely made it back home. And I told my wife, who had been listening to this story that I'm talking about, my near-death experience, she'd heard it many times. And from that very moment, I've not had another one of those deja vu instances. My life, from that moment on, the very minute I started doing videos for people who don't believe there's a God, because they're a physicist, they're a quantum physicist or a nuclear engineer. These people are very high IQ, but they're missing something because they've either looked at religion and saw what a giant lie it was, because all you have to do is read articles like this from religious people talking about, I've seen the light of the evil of my own doing, okay? When you have people who can't believe in God because they don't see a way for God to exist, my whole life has been dedicated to following two men who didn't know one another, who recently, in the last few years, got together, Mr. Hammeroff and Mr. Penrose. I followed each of them individually, and not knowing why, just I was supposed to. I was supposed to become interested in quantum mechanics, interdimensional possibilities. The strangeness of time-space, the strangeness of wave functions, the strangeness of the accepted form of reality, the holographic principle of reality that says the information playing out right now, our reality is coming from some far unknown point, infinitely far away. You see, that all would sound strange to some people who go to church every Sunday, but it really makes a lot of sense to people who are nuclear physicists who cannot find God anywhere. And my job is to tell them, yeah, God's real. I'm as I'm as against man's religion as a man can be. Yet I saw God. I experienced God. I tell them I spent my whole life doing every molecule and electromechanical experiment that I could, trying to replicate my experience. That I'd studied near death experience of thousands of others. And those are the people, those are the small number of people I am supposed to reach. To tell them that God is real, that on your last day, when you breathe your last breath, you will be freed from this animal body and you will become 100% a spiritual being in a place that is so beautiful, so full of love and understanding and acceptance. But you will pay the price for every lack of caring for others in your life, no matter how big or how small. Every action you have taken against what God would want you to do, which is be your brother's keeper. You are your brother's keeper. You are responsible for someone that starves to death when you have more money than you need. You are responsible. You could have done something. And you don't have to save the world. I tell people, donate $10 to Children's Hospital. And that's enough. You don't have to perform miracles. You don't have to save the world. You don't have to save every starving child. Just help one person. And if we all just helped one person, the world would be a different place. There is a God. There is a God. He's absolutely the opposite of everything that humans say God is, okay? We are comparable, an amoeba to a human. You can't even understand what God is. You are not capable of understanding God. So men created a God they could understand. And he's just like a man, isn't he? Jealous, needs money, craves power, jealous. Christians are directly responsible for the death of 90 million people. That's documented. You have Muslims that murder people because they don't believe the right way. Do you think that's the God of the universe? We're just one sentient species of billions of sentient species, most likely trillions of sentient species. If you're going to talk about time over a span of, well, now they think the universe is much older than 13.7 billion years. Now that James Webb has looked out there and saw mature galaxies that shouldn't exist, God exists, okay? The higher IQ you have, the more you should understand the work that Hameroff and Penrose are doing with microtubules. You see, they were always looked at as a secondary part of the body. We didn't understand why they didn't divide with a chromosome, but were reproduced by the chromosome in the mitochondria. They still don't understand what that organ does. That's you being preserved, cell to cell to cell to cell. If you are of high intelligence and you were insulted by the religion of men, please look at the work being done now by two of the most brilliant men, okay, on the planet in their fields. Hameroff and Penrose, okay? I feel better now that I got off my chest this morning. I started out with a fucked up phone call with the VA trying to explain to them why 20 veterans commit suicide every day. And I was compelled to do this video. Compelled. I had no choice. This is what I'm supposed to do when I'm supposed to do it. And the person that is supposed to see this video will find it. And they will understand, if they've been here for 15 years, that I've never changed an A or a Z of my story. Okay? God loves you. But he does expect you to be kind and generous. And if you have more than you need, to share it with those who have nothing, and to not look down on them. And that religion, the religion of man, is evil. It is the bane of humanity and is destroying our world. Christianity justifies pollution. They don't believe in climate change. Oh, that's just some kind of fucking conspiracy theory by the damn God-hating Democrats. No one escapes the truth on their last day. No one.